Thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you, buddy. Thank you very much. My goodness. Thank you very much. Wow. Appreciate your being here. Thank you, Mac, for that wonderful introduction. As far as I'm concerned, it is Mac's World. What do you think? Yeah. That video brings back a lot of old memories. All you young fellas out there with that good-looking head of hair, it may not always be that way. Enjoy it while you can. This is a wonderful turnout. I can't tell you how much I appreciate it. We've got Jerry's parents, Ron and Vicki Keller, here from Naperville, Illinois, over here. I want to thank my in-laws for coming. Make sure I do this right. And Aunt Diane and Cousin Jesse from Omaha. So we took this opportunity to have a Midwestern family reunion here. I want to tell you how special this day is for us, special for me, special for my family. This is the first event of the first day of our campaign for the presidency of the United States. How special does that get? And it is so appropriate that we are right here, because in case some person somewhere in the United States of America does not know this, it all begins in Iowa, and that's where we wanted to be today. My friends, I am not here today because I have had a lifelong ambition to hold the office of the presidency. Nor do I think that I have all the answers for the problems that face this country. I don't think any person does. But I am a man who loves his country, who is concerned about her future, and knows that in the next years it's going to require strong leadership. Decisions are going to be made on this next president's watch that's going to determine the course of our country for many years to come. And I am determined that we make the decisions that will leave us a stronger nation, a more prosperous nation, and a more united nation. And that's why I'm running for the presidency of the United States. This whole process for us started around our kitchen table just a few months ago. Now, we got a lot of process talk about, you can't run for president of the United States unless you run for years, unless you raise, I think some of the pundits said, $100 million this calendar year. No possibility of that. But the more we looked at it, the more I thought that something special is going on in this country. The more I looked around my house, the more it occurred to me, what kind of world are these kids going to grow up in? These kids and my grandkids. What kind of country are they going to have when they get a little older? And then I thought, how often does a man have a chance to do something about that? So we tested the waters, just like we said. We went out to make sure what I was feeling was actually there. And I think it is, my friends. I think that the American people have opened up a door of opportunity. There have been doors, as you can see, from my background, all along my way, because I was so fortunate to have a wonderful family, wonderful parents, and wonderful people who oftentimes saw more in me than I saw in myself all along my way. And those doors occasionally would open up, and occasionally I'd walk through one because it was a challenge, sometimes a personal one, sometimes one for my state, sometimes one for my country. I feel this is another door to serve the country that I love. So the preseason is over. Let's get on with it. Thank you. Now, folks, there are many serious issues that are facing this country, and it's time for some serious conversation about it. I think the American people are ready for that. I think they're ready for frank conversation. I think they're ready for forthright conversation. And that's exactly what we're going to do. We don't know how to do it any other way. It's not worth doing any other way, unless you can do it that way. And we're going to make sure that at the end of the day, if the good Lord is willing, we'll be victorious. But there's one thing I think that we can guarantee, and that is at the end of this campaign, by doing that, we will have done something good for our nation, and our country will be better off for this campaign, and I hope you will help me do that. That is my goal in life. As you have seen in this little video, I thought about just running that video again instead of making a speech, to tell you the truth. I kind of like that. But my story is an American story, one that's happened so many times across this great nation of ours, where a kid of modest means in a little town without a whole lot of resources, even a whole lot of ambition, when he was a kid, had the opportunity to do some great things for his family, and hopefully some good things for the people of Tennessee and the people of this country. I've seen it from a lot of different standpoints. I've seen it from the factory floor when I was working the graveyard shift, and we'd have lunch there on the change of the shifts, and I'd be ankle deep in water there at the Murray, Ohio bicycle plant, where I was running a machine that was so loud I couldn't hear myself yell if I wanted to. And I've had the opportunity to dine with foreign leaders in foreign capitals around the world, and just about everything in between. And one of the things that I focused on kind of early was what I considered to be the most important thing having to do with my country and my country's future. And as the years pass by, unfortunately, it gets more and more important. That is our nation's safety. That is the men, women, and children of this country, and where it's going to be a few years from now. We're living in an era now of the suitcase bomb. We're living in an era now of the proliferation of weapons of mass destruction, where a small amount of the wrong kind of material getting in the wrong hands can do destruction that we never thought possible before. And they are more likely than ever to fall into the hands of our worst enemy. Radical Islam has declared war upon us. Some years ago, people didn't pay much attention to it. We didn't even recognize the fact that that had happened. But we know it now. They look upon it as something that's been going on for hundreds of years, and as far as they're concerned, they're willing to take it another 100 years as they methodically move forward, massacring innocent people, bringing the Soviet Union to its knees, who they considered the tougher opponent, and now focusing upon us and all those who would befriend us around the world. Iraq is a part of that conflict, but Iraq is not that conflict. That conflict will be with us, unfortunately, long after Iraq is in our rear view mirror. And the whole world watches and waits as the determination of the American people is tested. My friends, if we show weakness and division, we will pay a heavy price for it in the future. We must show the determination that we are going to be united as an American people and do whatever is necessary to prevail not only in Iraq, but in the worldwide conflict that lies beyond Iraq. We have the bravest young people in the world fighting for us, and we have to match their commitment and determination here at home. You talk to them, these hospitals, the one that's even been grievously wounded. Their biggest concern, the ones I've talked to usually, is getting back with their folks that they left back, and concerned that their wounds are so great that they might not be able to be allowed to do that. It's magnificent, and every waking moment of a commander-in-chief should be to make sure that people like that's efforts and their families' sacrifices are not made in vain. And I don't intend for it to be. Meanwhile, back at home, the politicians have been quite busy spending the next generation's money. Pretty soon, we will have spent the Social Security surplus, and the baby boomers will start retiring just in a few years from now, and the next president's watch. And of course, it skyrockets from there, and it will result in astronomically high deficits, a tax burden on the next generation and generations to come, and a ruination of our economy. Every economist who's looked at this, including our own government officials who are the watchdog agencies, such as the Government Accountability Office, says that this path is unsustainable. Everybody in Washington knows it. You know, one of the arguments against term limits, I put term limits on myself when I went to the United States Senate. I still think it's a pretty good idea, to tell you the truth. But one of the arguments against that is that look at all the expertise that you'd lose, you know, if you had term limits. Is it expertise that we're lacking, or is it lack of will to do the right thing? I think it's the latter. And yet the politicians kick the can down the road until presumably their own retirement, somebody else's problem. I wonder if our little kids and our grandchildren and those yet to be born had a seat at the table, what they'd say about it. I wonder what they'd say to us. I wonder what they'd think about us. My friends, we need to deliver a message to Washington that we're better than that. And you can start delivering that message by electing a president who will blow the whistle on this lack of responsibility, and I'm the guy who will do that. Now, there are a lot of issues that we're going to have a chance to talk about all across Iowa, in large groups and small, I hope. No way in one speech to touch on all of them. I think one thing is important to point out, though, in my estimation, and that is that there are going to be issues, regardless of what we come up with in terms of an issue list, that the next president cannot foresee, that we can't foresee. Some we know about will still be with us. There will be new ones. I think it's very important that people understand a man's principles, what he measures things by, what will be the standards that he applies as issues come before him. As far as I'm concerned, I still have the same common sense conservative beliefs I did when I ran in 1994. We were able to win that election, going from one end of that state to the other, talking about the sanctity of life, talking about lower taxes, talking about less regulation, talking about the market economy, talking about free competition, talking about respect for private property rights in this country, talking about free and fair trade, and all those things that made America great. And if I said then that if we just stick with that, the American people agree with these things, if we'll just stick with that, not only will we be successful, but we'll continue to be prosperous in this country. We've been a beacon for all those other countries out there who ever applied those same principles. They've all been successful. All been successful. And the American people said yes. 94, unexpectedly to a lot of people. Remember? Clinton had kind of cleaned our clock there for a while. We came back strong. Had a mandate to cut taxes and balance the budget and pass welfare reform and make Congress live under the same laws that everybody else is. First thing I did with Chuck Grassley is get that bill passed. Under his tutelage, not a bad guy to learn from. And so I'm that same guy. I haven't changed from those principles anywhere along the way. I'm the same guy and the same principles that I had when I went back to Lawrenceburg and started the first Young Republicans Club right out of law school in 1968. I'm the same guy I was when I came out here a few times over the years campaigning for Republican candidates because I thought it was a good thing for my party and a good thing for my country. And I still think that way. But these positions are based upon certain principles. I call them first principles. I call them the principles that our country was founded upon many years ago. They're based upon the notion that some things in this changing world just don't change. It's based upon appreciation of human nature. It's based upon the wisdom of the ages. It's based upon the belief that the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution of the United States are not outmoded documents that can be cast aside, that we still get our we still get our basic rights from God and not from government. We still have a government where power is divided, not just at the federal level, but between the federal and the state level. Federalism is about freedom. It's about individual freedom. It's about political freedom. It's about economic freedom. It's about an understanding that a government powerful enough to give you everything can take away from you anything. It's based upon the notion that we want a government that is limited to the powers delegated to it in the Constitution, but a government that's strong enough to protect our people, and a government that is competent enough to do the things that a government is supposed to be doing. Yet more and more we see that that is not true. When I was chairman of the Governmental Affairs Committee in 2001, I put out a report called Government at the Brink. It's about a 2-volume report. And I pointed out just how hopelessly messed up the bureaucracy in our federal government was, and how many billions of dollars we were wasting. And the fact that we couldn't get computers to talk to each other, and we couldn't get governments to, agencies or the government itself to really pass an audit, couldn't live up to standards that they put on private businesses at all. An outmoded civil service system. We weren't getting enough people in that we needed for the high-tech requirements that the future was going to bring us, and made it virtually impossible to get rid of anybody that wasn't doing the job. On and on and on and on. That was my opinion then, and folks, I hadn't changed my mind a bit. It's even worse than it was before. And it's going to require strong leadership to do something about it, because now we see it's affecting national security. Now we see that it's used as an excuse for us not even enforcing our borders against illegal immigration, and we can't tolerate that in this country, because we know that a country that cannot secure its own borders ultimately will not remain a sovereign nation. That battle in Congress over that last immigration bill is the latest in several pieces of evidence that demonstrates without a shadow of a doubt that there's a major disconnect between Washington, D.C. And the American people. Because when we look to Congress, we see division, acrimony, disruption, looking to everything toward the next election and not the next generation, short-sighted political opportunism here and there. Is this the government that our Democratic friends say should play a larger and larger role in all of our lives? I don't think so. It's kind of ironic that the Democrats are moving more and more toward the Western European system of higher taxes, more regulation, and larger government, when countries like France and Germany are moving more our way. You know, they ought to read the newspapers every once in a while. Some good things are happening over there now, based upon our traditional principles. Principles that understand that the rule of law underlies everything else in this country. People can go in and get a fair shot and a fair hearing in a fair court based upon the law and the Constitution. Unfortunately, the rule of law is violated more often than not by judges themselves more than anybody else. That's why I was so happy to stand by Chief Justice John Roberts' side. He's a great Chief Justice, but he needs some help. We need another one or two. And if I'm elected President of the United States, I will appoint judges who follow the Constitution, not shape the Constitution to fit their own political or personal notions about how society ought to operate. I've seen both kinds of judges up close, and I know the difference. I don't need anybody to point that out to me. My friends, this is what I believe and have believed and will continue to is best for our country. I think this is what you believe. I think that it's what the American people believe, just as when I first started out in politics. I don't think their opinion about the basics have changed. Might look like that our side's opinions every once in a while have changed, but the American people's opinions haven't as to what's important. And whatever the issues are that we face, whether you're talking about health care, education, energy, all those important things, the application of those first principles, the application of those common sense conservative beliefs will result in a stronger nation. That's what this is all about. That's why I'm here today, and that's why you're here today. We are citizens of the greatest nation on earth. That makes us the luckiest people on earth. That carries with it certain obligations. Obligation to do everything that we can that it remains the greatest nation on earth and that we leave this place a little better than when we came into it. That's what it's all about. You know, you look back over our history, and it doesn't take you long to realize that our people have shed more blood for other people's liberty than any other combination of nations in the history of the world. And I'm a little tired. Frankly, I'm a little tired of other people's need to apologize for it. I don't think we have anything to apologize for. We are steeped in the tradition of honor and sacrifice for the greater good in this country. And we are proud of that heritage. I think this time in America's history, Americans are once again ready to do the things necessary to achieve that greater good. And that greater good is nothing less than the security, prosperity, and unity of the greatest nation in the world. I think most Americans still share those ideals and principles. And if we apply them and we stay true, it doesn't matter what the pundits say today, we will win next year when it counts. My friends, our country needs us to win. Our country needs us to win. I am ready to lead that fight. Let's do it together. Thank you very, very much for being here today. Bye. Thank you.